Good evening and welcome to the latest episode of Critics in Cars Getting Home, where we are on our way home from seeing the Cannes opening night film, but we're not in Cannes at the moment, we're in Newmarket, Auckland.
Basically the same thing.
Basically the same thing though, the same frisson in the air for seeing Léos Carax, he's the French director, of the film called Annette, and it is a crazy musical.
Starring Adam Driver and Marion Cotillard, Yes, so those of you who may recognize the name Léos Carax, his film Holy Motors played at the
2012 Cannes.
2012 Cannes, and then later at the Civic. It was one of the big films during the film festival that year. And also his film Lovers on the Bridge with Juliette Binoche and Denis Lavant has a small degree of fame, in part because it put a French production company out of business for being so expensive and took a decade to get released in America, and which may or may not correspond with some of the autobiographical elements of this film.
Yes, hard to know, and I can't tell you quite how successful Annette is going to be in terms of box office and all that sort of thing. But Doug and I have not yet told each other what we think of this film. I will just say I went in with very low expectations, not because I don't think these people have pedigree and know how to make a movie, but because I had seen the trailer, and frankly, it looked weird.
And was it weird?
It was weird and amazing. I thought it was an incredible film. So apparently it's quite polarizing, right?
So I'm actually not polarized. I liked it a lot. I thought I was going to be 5 stars 5 minutes in. The opening is so delightful. It recalls some of the greatest moments of some of Carax's earlier films. He does another film, Mauvais Song, where Denis Lavant dances down the street to Modern Love. And there's a break in Holy Motors where during the intermission, there's a group of people playing accordion and marching, and there's a similar sort of moment near the start of this, and I'm just like... I
would say there is a similar joie de vivre, given that he is a French filmmaker.
There's a joie de vivre, but there's also a sadness. Now, this is his first, I believe, English language film, and the musical components have been done by the band Sparks, who...
They're American, they're now in their 70s, 2 brothers, Ron and Russ, male, I think.
That sounds plausible.
Right, and so the Sparks have been going for decades.
And there's an Edgar Wright documentary on them in cinemas now, which we haven't seen.
But which I would like to see. Strangely, because they're quite esoteric, I'm actually a Sparks fan since the early 2000s. And I think the one thing that appeals to me about their music is its theatricality and its orchestration. It is not pop music in any sort of normal sense at all. It's very interesting melodies and harmonies. There's a lot of almost spoken wordy bits. Not spoken word in the traditional rap hip-hop way, but sort of talking through a song like this and then being a little bit rhymey, witty, that kind of stuff.
And actually, that's one of the reasons I don't tend to like their music, but I think it really works here. I think, like, if you're going to make a musical, have music that sounds like a musical, and it had better kind of tunes that jumped out to me than I thought In the Heights did, for the most part.
Yes,
you know?
That's a really good point. Just to say that readers, listeners, watchers, if you want to, go back and watch our In the Heights Critics in Car Getting Home video, because we did talk a little bit about the music, and I remember feeling very much that none of the songs were sort of memorable to me from In the Heights, apart from In the Heights, and I to this day couldn't tell you any of the other tunes, whereas this music felt really immersive and memorable, and halfway through the film I'm like, I am buying the album or whatever it is one does nowadays to get music off the internet.
We should say very quickly the basic conceit of the film.
Oh, we should.
Which is that Adam Driver is a controversial sort of stand-up comedian who, because it's a musical, I think we're supposed to think he sings during his stuff, but he also may just be breaking into song because it's a musical.
Yeah.
And he meets an opera singer played by Marion Cotillard named Anne, and they fall madly in love, have a baby, and happily ever after, right?
Sure.
And yeah, so that would be probably...
it's pretty dark.
Yeah.
In fact, it's very dark, and and Carax's film riffs on a lot of things that will be immediately recognizable to any viewer, whether it is the consumption of like tabloid media interest in celebrities, or whether it's accusations of impropriety in the male character and that sort of thing. You know, there's
or
a lot
what's
of stuff
appropriate
that's really
material
now.
on stage.
That's right.
And also, you know, what it means to absorb. I mean, we have a female character who literally dies every night on stage in opera for our entertainment. That's something that's 400 years old, and there's a key scene that involves Adam Driver's character basically enacting sort of the same thing on stage and killing it, so to speak, and dying in the process on stage.
Yeah, so there, I mean, it would be kind of interesting. It's not the sort of thing you would teach in school, but it would be kind of interesting to study in terms of themes and messages and that sort of thing. You know, there's a lot to unpack in it. But even if you
especially
don't feel
if you have to
like...
explain explicit sex to a room full of teenagers, 'cause
Sure.
there is some explicit moments in this.
Although I thought it was rather lovely that in some of the earlier sex scenes, not a spoiler, guys, Marion Cotillard is rather, what's the word?
Voluptuous?
No, not voluptuous. She's not. That's not what we're saying at all. I'm saying she's covering her boobs in some of the sex scenes, even though the sex scene that's being enacted is potentially a little explicit. I thought that was an interesting choice. I thought, you know, choose your battles. But in any event, it's a strange film. It is not for everybody at all. It's the sort of thing that I can't even say if you're an Adam Driver fan, you should totally go, because I know lots of Adam Driver fans who will probably just think it's a very peculiar film, maybe find the music quite dissonant and quite, unappetizing perhaps.
What did you think of the use of repetition and kind of quite, in some cases, stunningly obvious
lyrics?
Yeah.
I find it really annoying. I hate, I can't now think off the top of my head, but there's some hip-hop song oh, you know what? It's the Beastie Boys, whom I love, so I really apologise to the remaining Beastie Boys for this. But, you know, the bit where they say, everybody acting like it's a commercial, acting like life is a big commercial. I'm like, you don't have to repeat the line. Find something else, and there's a lot of that in this.
We're traveling around the world.
That's right.
I was trying to work out if it was a really clever meta joke about the purpose of musicals. There are lots of strange little throwaway things. There's a bit where there's a book next to Annette's nightstand called K is for Knife Ball, which A, like it's called Knife Ball, and B, that you would have a K is for and then have a silent letter for it. You know?
Look, there's a lot of esoterica. There's a lot. And look, I don't even know how to recommend this film other than to say I really loved it. I did not expect to at all. Adam Driver's performance, to me, was nothing short of sublime. It's deeply problematic because the character he's playing is problematic, but my goodness, I thought he was absolutely extraordinary. Whoa, sorry about that, guys, but that's how I feel. His singing, whatever, he can hold a tune. It's not about his voice in that regard, but I thought he was extraordinary. What do you think of him?
He's an incredible actor, and I've said this on the podcast before. He is somebody who always looks the same. He's never one of those guys you go, who's that on screen? It's like, that's Adam Driver. And it just seems like he just kind of moves his one shoulder 2 inches to the left.
And embodies a completely different character.
Suddenly it's like, and
amazing.
If you saw 15 seconds of any of like 10 of his characters, from, you know, Silence to Marriage Story to Patterson to The Last Jedi, you would know instantly who it was.
Every time, though. Amazing.
Yeah.
And Marion Cotillard is fine. I mean, she sort of has the thankless task, I suppose, of being the female lead in a very sort of male-centric disaster film in a way, isn't it?
And we haven't even talked about the conductor, arranger, Simon
Hedberg.
Yes.
What's he from? The IT crowd?
No idea.
But
we're home, so we don't need to speculate on that.
We'll look it up.
How many stars are you going?
Dude, in my heart, I was all like, 4.5, 5, 4.5, 5. It's a bit messy in places, but the problem is you can't tell if it's meant to be messy or if it's accidentally messy and a bit crap. It's hard to tell. So I'm very much up that end of the spectrum. Like, I thought it was amazing. And I can't tell you what could have been done better because it's too complex and too weird. What would you do?
I'll go 4 stars.
Oh, you dug 4 stars. Oh,
yeah.
So that's great. Okay, so it's pretty high.
Yeah. So till next time, enjoy the movies and let us know if you think it's crazy.